to Miss Drea, and we have an awesome segment for you all today. I have my family. This is my niece, my second to the oldest niece, and then my cousin, and we are going to talk about just what they have to go through as Gen Z kids. I often compare their upbringing to our upbringing, and I know it's like two totally different worlds. And so we're trying to figure out where is the median, like where can we connect and figure out what where we're coming from as parents and where they're coming from and what they're dealing with in society as the youth. So one question that I wanted to kind of just start off with is to for you to just share a little bit about yourself. And then we'll kind of dive into what we got going on as far as what this one right here is calling trauma. I'm talking about blunt force trauma. Clearly, it is not that. But we will try to go a little deep. Look, I am by no means a therapist, psychologist, or whatever, but I would like to just get a better understanding of what the world is like, because it's different from when I graduated high school in '99. And so we're living in this digital age, and so they're exposed to a lot. And so I know sometimes as parents we don't understand where they're coming from, and we just got to find a way that we can connect and meet in that middle part and compromise, come to an agreement on some things, and not always having to be right or them having to be wrong, but finding a way that we can agree and find that mutual grounds. So let's hear it. Your name and what you got going on right now.
Okay, so hey y'all, I'm Robyn. I currently am a sophomore at Georgia State, studying and pursuing a double major in political science and in philosophy, both at a concentration and pre-law.
All right.
And I want to be a criminal defense lawyer.
Yes, ma'am. Awesome. So did you start out at Georgia State?
No, I started off at Georgia Southern, and no hate, it was not for me.
Not for you. You transferred. So for those that don't know, Georgia Southern is actually the rivalry for Georgia State, because we always used to say state, not Southern. And so that is that's awesome that she found out that the Blue Panthers was where it was at, and not down there in the boondocks. Not just kidding.
No, but I do like it a lot.
You like it more. Well, that's good, and that's the thing. Like, you would have never known if you didn't go.
Yeah.
So you needed to get that experience so you can find out what was the perfect fit for you. So I'm glad that you are enjoying state and enjoying the campus. I loved it. I went back. I went there twice for undergrad and grad, and so there's a lot of good things going on at Georgia State. So, all right. And so who we got over here?
I'm Maya. I'm a senior in high school, and yeah.
Ready to graduate?
Yep.
Yeah. What are your plans for after graduation?
Hopefully play a sport, either softball, flag football, or track.
Where?
Anywhere that give me a scholarship.
That part.
Full ride, baby.
That's right. Get a full ride. Mm-hmm. So have you been like researching schools that have those different programs? Mm-hmm. And so what would you like to get into as far as your major?
Most likely entrepreneurship, business, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What about like sports medicine? Have you ever thought about that area?
I did at first, until I'm in classes for that right now, and it's a lot of med terms. I don't know.
It is. You can do it, but I mean, it just has to be a passion, something that you like. And I was just trying to connect that with the athletic aspect of it. Then you get into the sports medicine, but there are other parts of the athletics, like being like a sports manager, playing the sport, So it's a lot.
Be an entertainment lawyer with me.
That part, make that partnership and connect, and have that money coming in from both areas. Mm-hmm. Growing up, how did you feel that your relationship with your parents? How did it impact like the decisions that you've made as far as like with college, in school? Did you want to play sports? Like for me, I felt like I played sports because I wanted to get out the house. Like I just had to have some type of outlet. I knew that if I wanted anything, and if I wanted anything better outside of Dunnsville, I had to get good grades, I had to graduate, and I had to go off to college, and I just had to make better choices. I know I didn't want to work as hard as my mom had to work to provide for us. I know I didn't want to continue to live in Donaldsonville, in the country. I mean, nothing's wrong with the country because I love going home and getting that peace and relaxation. But as a teenager or a young adult, I felt like I had to get away.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that impact like your decisions you made with going to college and things like that?
As far as I can say, like I have like a very fortunate life in the fact that I was able to travel, able to play so many sports, and I've been to almost like every state except like, you know, probably like 8. I've been out of the country. So I've been fortunate in that sense to be able to see where I would want to put myself in life, where I would want to live in the future. Right. And in a sense, I've been able to, well, ever since the 3rd grade, I knew what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer in the 3rd grade. So when we went to Boston and went to Washington, D.C., I was like, oh my gosh, like this is where I want to be.
Like the light just kind of was like, this is it.
Everybody in their little suits and briefcases. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be me one day in my hot pink suit.
And your hot pink, okay.
Hot pink. But yeah, I feel as though that I was very fortunate to see the atmosphere I would want to be around in that sense. But I feel as though if there was more open communication about, okay, like, these are the colleges that we can afford to like let you attend, or you know, we probably should keep you in sports because maybe you could go to any school that you would like if you were able to get a scholarship and stuff like that. And I feel as though I appreciate my process and my journey of being able to go to Georgia Southern and realizing, okay, this is not for me, so I need to take the steps to leave this school and go to another one where I feel it's right is for me. So I appreciate that journey, but I feel as though I wish I would have known other steps. So
gotcha. So you feel like you wish you could have had just more conversations with your parents as far as like, these are my options. Yeah. Instead of being told, this is what you're going to do. This is what you need to do. But giving you an option and saying, well, let's try this avenue. Let's do this. Let's see what this is going to do. And so you're just saying you may needed that, just more open dialogue with your parents.
Definitely, because I had like a college counselor, somebody to like refer to about like, okay, like this is like my reach schools, my target schools and stuff like that. But when it came to getting those decisions back, it was also like, okay, well, how are you going to get there? You don't have a car, like the money, how much is this going to be? And those conversations weren't there. So like I had a little bit of a higher goal for myself, and not being able to afford it was like a little bit of like felt like a setback at the time because I wasn't aware of that I couldn't afford to go to these schools that I would want to.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're saying you just wish your parents would have kind of laid out outline and like gave you those parameters of like this is our budget area. Yeah. And this is what we need to stick in. If you want to go outside of that, you need to get some more scholarships. Yeah. You need to talk. And I went to a seminar, I forget what the nonprofit is, but that's what they were training the parents to do to start in, she actually said 8th grade. Yeah. 8th or 9th grade to start laying out like what the classes they should take in high school, if they want to take those AP classes, if they want to do dual enrollment. So that way you're setting yourself up because dual enrollment has those free classes. Yeah. And so you're getting that credit while you're in high school. You're getting high school credit and you're getting college credit. So that decreases your payment amount, what you would have to owe in college. And so she was saying that 8th grade, you should start laying out, this is what we need to do. And even that early, you should start looking for scholarships. And I'm like, wow.
Because I know kids like who got scholarships like elementary school because they start so young.
Yeah. And just start stacking that money, putting it into a savings account for the kids. There are different avenues that you can start like saving money for kids. I don't know all the areas. I only know a few, and look clearly because we taking out loans for my daughter, so it's like it's a learning process. But we have to be, as parents, not afraid to ask and not afraid to have these conversations with our kids. One thing that I did learn at that seminar as well, they were saying that parents should, like the summer before they go to 9th grade, go ahead and meet with those academic advisors, let them know this is the avenue that I want my child to go in, so these are the courses I want them to take. Taking a proactive approach instead of being reactive when it's like, oh, well, what classes? At the last minute, what class you got to have? I'm a senior and I ain't even got all my credits. And it's like, no, We have to be, because I met some kids that were like that, and so they had to go to summer school just because they just were not aware, and for whatever reason they slipped through the cracks, and their academic advisors didn't let them know that, you know, whether they were on the right or wrong track. So that's good, Robyn. Just letting parents know we need to have that dialogue with our kids. I know I talked to mine. Now if she listened, but some of the stuff she was like, well, you know, just slow moving back. And I'm like, okay, it's gonna come back and bite you in the butt in the long run. That's on you. I had to take our student loans when I went to college. So look, you're gonna have to do the same thing unless you find these scholarships, and it's work. Finding scholarships, it's just like a 9-to-5 job. You need to continue to look. So yeah. So what about you, Jamaya? What are some of the areas that you feel like that you had going on in the house that made you say, okay, when I get out of school, I'm doing this. I'm going away to California. I'm going, you know what I'm saying? Like what were some of the things that you just wish that that you would have just a better form of communication with your parents, or something like laid out for you as far as support?
Definitely being more proactive, like you said, starting us off young. Because my mom, she does push forth with me with sports or whatever, but like when it comes to certain stuff, like we are on Black people time, we're late. Like when it comes to scholarships, looking for colleges, she tells me, but she doesn't. I feel like she doesn't work with me, because in high school I can say I procrastinate a lot. So it's like, I know I should be doing these things, but it doesn't click in my head to the last minute. Oh, you gotta look for colleges. You gotta figure out what school you want to go to, what you don't want to go to, what money you need. Because it's a whole lot. And being set back already from being late, that's even more problem.
Yeah, more pressure. So you feel like if you had your mom, if she was able just to sit there with you and like, okay, let's go on the computer, let's like do some research together, so that you would have a better understanding of what it is. Makes sense. And I feel like that is important, so that way both of y'all see. Because your interpretation of what you might see online, and she might be like, nah, I heard about that school, that's not a good school, or I haven't, their numbers don't look good, and just some of the wording that may be more clear to her and maybe a little bit confusing to you, but if y'all were sitting there together, then that would make that way y'all can make a better choice. Makes sense. Okay, so do you feel like your parents compare you to either their upbringing or to other kids, like maybe your classmates or the neighbor? And so how does that affect you when you get hit with that?
I definitely feel like as though I get compared to like my friends or like other classmates or other peers that I have like brought home or like introduced to my parents. And it hurts in a sense, because I feel as though everybody has their own journey, has their own path into how they do things. And I feel as if everybody's journey, if everybody did the same thing, nobody would be unique and everybody would be aspiring to be the same person, and that's not realistic.
Yeah.
And I feel as though to compare another child to another child is like insinuating that like you feel as though your child needs to be that child, and that's one. I feel like everybody has their own like individuality and personality, and I feel as though they should be able to express who they want to be instead of having to compete with somebody else, because it brings on that mindset that Nancy over here is doing this and that, and Nancy's path is different than yours. Nancy might be doing this right now, but you never know how her future is going to look, and your present and defines your future in a sense. So I feel as though people shouldn't compare themselves, and definitely that parents shouldn't compare their children to other children, because they don't know what they're insinuating in that child and how that affects that child's mental state.
Gotcha.
And I feel as though, what was the first question? Like you originally started off.
Just comparing to your friends or comparing to their upbringing.
And the thing, like their upbringing, I feel as though that it will be, I don't really know my parents' upbringing, because it's almost like you ask about it, or like you like it's no open dialogue about it. It's a closed book, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know what you went through, and also my mom had me at 32, so what she went through in 1970 is very different from what I'm going through in the 21st century, and like in how I'm dealing with social media, dealing with mental health, dealing with my classes, because they're not the same classes she dealt with. My tuition is not the same tuition that she had to go through. Like, everything is truly uncomparable. So from her generation, or like how she was brought up, and I don't know how she was brought up. Like, so
I will say, to the parents' defense, I can only speak for my upbringing and just being able to relate, because me and your mom are cousins, so we kind of grew up in the same era. Like, we went through some stuff that we really don't want y'all to be exposed to, so that's why we kind of like keep it like sealed. And I have had some conversations with Ananda, and so she knows some stuff that we had to go through. And I feel like now that, you know, you're 19, right? You haven't turned 20 yet. So I feel like it is to a point where maybe she can start sharing some of that stuff with you. Because I did wait until Nana got out of high school, or maybe her junior, senior year, and I could kind of just let her in a little bit at a time of what it looked like growing up in our era. And so she does know a little things, but I think what we as parents, we don't talk about it because we don't want to expose you to the trauma that we have. And a lot of times we haven't even dealt with that trauma. And so we're like trying to like figure out, how much do I let you know? At what age do I start sharing this with you? And or do I just like shut it down, and do I just say, okay, well, nah, you can't do that, because deep down in my heart I feel like, you know, I'm afraid that something may happen to you, or the same thing may happen to you what happened to me, and so now I'm just forbidding you to even go into those arenas. So I know it's tough for y'all as teenagers, because you really don't understand, but for us, we're trying to protect you. We don't want you to get bit by that snake.
And I definitely understand that, and I feel as though maybe because I'm like a philosophy major, I like to like analyze things a little bit more, and I like to like research things, and like I like to understand why people act the way they do. And like, I feel as though, in a sense, that it would be beneficial if that open communication started at an earlier age, just like letting me know like who my mom is, like how, like, I don't know, like, instead of just retaliating, is that weird? Instead of just like retaliating, I wish like it was a form where my mom understood why I act the way I act, or why I behave the way I behave, instead of just trying to punish me, because at the end of the day, it's not going to just change the way I was acting, because we never got to the deep root of it. And I feel as though that's the same avenue if my mom or like any of my cousins or anybody doesn't know why they act the way they act. It's because if you don't get to the deep root of it, when people say like, you know, but when you know more, you do better, or you like, if you don't know it, you can't act that way. So I feel as though.
And I would say, going back to our upbringing, like, that's all it was. When you did wrong, you got beat. When you messed up, you got beat. There was no form of communication. When you think that now it's a closed book, growing up, like, we didn't talk about sex. We didn't talk about, like, we didn't even talk about, like, somebody going to jail, like, who got arrested and what they got arrested for. Like, growing up in our era, everything was, like, hush, hush. And as kids, even if you had a question about something, kids were supposed to be seen, and I heard you supposed to have on your little pretty little Easter dress, have on your little cute little shoes, your little pigtails in your hair, and sit there and look cute and don't say nothing. Like, we were not allowed into certain rooms, like, you know, when the grown-ups was talking, you go outside, or you finna got the kids go in the back room and play, or, you know, kids were just shut out of a lot. And so we're at that in-between stage where we know that the kids need a voice, but it's like, how much voice do you give them? Because we were so, shut up, go sit down, get out my face, go outside and don't come back in until we done fix y'all some hot dogs and bologna sandwiches. Or, you know, go outside, you get this one cup, y'all drinking from the water hose, don't come back in, don't be in and out the house. You know, so now we're, as adults, when we have our own kids, now we're like, okay, where do I find that median? Where do I start? Like I say, sharing information with you. And I do get what you're saying. At a younger age, maybe, some small talk could have been had, but in all essence, it is mainly just to protect you from that snake that is lingering in the grass that we don't want y'all to be, exposed to. And so, I like I said, with you being that philosophy major, it makes sense that you just want to know. It's just you want to know. And so I do, as a teacher, I allow my students to kind of have that dialogue. I can't go too deep with my students, but with my kids, I do allow them to ask questions. And then I can answer them to the best of my ability and give it in a age appropriate scenario. Instead of going way to the deep, but give you pieces by pieces, and then as you get older, we can share more and you can understand more, because at a young age you can't be hit with so much, and then because you're gonna go to school and say, my mama said this and this and the teacher gonna be like, well, Robyn, we gonna have to make a phone call. So it's I feel like it's just always a time for certain things. And like I say, you're getting older, so maybe it is time for you to just start having that dialogue, just asking questions and understanding that it's gonna be a process in order for her to open up and fully share like what she had to go through.
That's one thing that I can say I don't like when it comes with parents, like them wanting to shield us from so much. I feel like I'm personally a child that's kind of like, I'm gonna touch the stove and see if it's hot.
I can't stand that. I done told you the stove is hot. You ain't got to touch it.
Right.
Just know. But yeah, that's y'all mentality.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a need to know. Like, honestly, I do understand certain things. It's like you don't even know about that. That's grown folks' business. But a lot of stuff, I'm kind of like wondering minds. Oh, what's this? Because I feel like y'all shield us from so much, and then we get into the real world, and if we get put in those situations, we kind of like, oh, what do we do?
Yeah, we're looking lost because we were never exposed to that, and it's also we are exposed to stuff that y'all shield us from at a very early age, because we grow up with social media, and with y'all not having to deal with that, it's also what avenue do I start letting children talk, where do I start this conversation, because baby, what goes on in a high school?
Wow.
I can say this generation, we're not, I don't want to say way smarter now than y'all were, but we kind of get introduced to stuff way earlier than what we should have got introduced to stuff.
The social media, it is. And because we are we're in the Atlanta metro area, so you're exposed to a whole lot of different people, different cultures, different upbringings, and so it's like we can't compare to that because we grew up in Donaldsonville. So we had kind of the same. You had the working class, the lower working class, and then the non-working class. Those were the only three levels. We didn't have the people that was the rich and wealthy, or we didn't have to compete with that. We as the Black community, we feel like if we're sending our kids across the track or sending them out, to a better school, but like you say, you getting exposed to this. You're getting exposed to the harsh of the harsh. And so think about that, parents. So I've always been a hands-on parent anyway. So even though I'm not in the school building, I'm communicating with with the teachers. And so I'm making sure that, and in my eyes, I'm making sure that they're in a safe environment. But the teachers won't know about this because what they have in the drugs in the bathrooms,
and their lockers,
on the bleachers,
and okay, not under the bleachers.
Oh, my bad.
Ain't that
I took it too far.
Ain't nobody under the bleachers. But
they don't go up under that snort if they in PE or whatever.
No, kid was doing it in biology.
Oh, right there in the class.
Go like this.
Literally.
Get around.
A paper towel.
Oh wow.
Put it in a paper towel.
Yeah, them kids okay.
We won't do that in my school, but I know.
You just know. Look, social media exposes you. See?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I feel like that building that connection, having that conversation with your kids, y'all, is major. So how do you feel as far as like with your parents comparing you, or have you felt like they've compared you to other classmates or to their upbringing?
I don't like it at all. Like certain stuff is kind of like it's degrading and it makes me feel like worthless in a way. Some of it can be like pushed forth for me, like especially when it comes to sports, it makes me push a little harder. But in most instances, kind of like, well, dang, do I need to like change myself to be more like her, or to do what they're doing?
And especially because we have our own accomplishments that we feel so proud of, like we don't need that to be like delinquished or like like minimized because we need to like be more like Nancy over here, and I don't know why I keep up.
I didn't say you said
Nancy. I don't even know a Nancy. But I was like, but like I was so part of so many clubs and was recognized a lot in school, and it's just like, okay, well, all of that's subsidized for you need to be like Nancy.
It's like it wasn't enough. Like whatever you did wasn't enough. Wow. And I'm thinking that, and I'm just speaking for me, when I compared my daughter to one of her classmates, it wasn't a comparison so like you need to be like them. Mine was, y'all friends. She got 100 in the class, you got a 70. Y'all see each other every day. Why y'all don't study together? That would be my take. And I used to tell her all the time, I'm like, dog, she come up here every day. She got 100 in the classroom, but you sitting on 70. Why don't y'all talk about your homework or talk about the classwork? So that would be my way of saying, not really be like her, but get her to help you.
Yeah, and it's also, but that also brings up the conversation of why is my daughter not succeeding well in this class if she has friends who are? Like, why is it is it something that she needs extra tutoring with? Is it something that the friend can't help with? Is it something with the teacher? And that's when you have to like explore and go navigate, how can I do better to like help let my daughter succeed?
So it almost seems like y'all want the parents to be more proactive, like,
and transparent.
Ask questions instead of assuming. Ask to see,
because we have to assume if we don't know anything.
No, not y'all, the parents. You want the parents to ask.
It goes both ways, because if we feel as though we can't communicate to the parent, then we're left to assume, and if they can't communicate to us, then they're left to assume on what we're doing. And if they feel as though, okay, well, I can't talk to Nancy once again about like why she's not passing this class or like what's going on, then it's obviously up to her. Like, it's obviously she's the reason, and like she's the reason to her own like failure, instead of actually being like, okay, Nancy, like, what's going on in this class? And then Nancy can probably be like, okay, well, if I feel comfortable, because sometimes kids don't even feel comfortable talking to their parents, and that's that's the biggest thing. Because if I feel as though I'm going to be criticized, if I'm truly trying to come to you, then I'm not even going to shut down.
and I will say, like, I say me, because I did well in high school. And I graduated honors, and I was always in the top class. And I was just talking to my husband about that the other day. They start separating us in middle school. And so I noticed like they started separating us like in third grade. It was second and third grade, because I noticed some of the people that I was in class with, and I started like moving away from them. And I was like, well, dog. And so our middle school was 4th grade through 7th grade. And I'm like, well, dang, in middle school, I got no classes with my old friends. And so I noticed that I was trickling all the way over to the higher class, I guess I would say, because I started being in class with the students who ended up being our salutatorian and valedictorian. So that the school makes that separation. And so it's like, if these are your friends, then why y'all not, why y'all not at that same level? Yeah. Well, this friend got other stuff on their mind. I'm trying to make sure I get these grades, and I think I recognize at an early age, like if I want to get somewhere, I need to separate myself. Yeah. And so I'm very competitive, and so I became competitive with myself. Say spelling, if I made an 80, the next time I want to make a 90, the next time I want to make a 100. And I don't see that in kids nowadays. They don't compete with either with their classmates or with themselves.
I feel like a lot that had to do with like, oh, everybody gets like a participation award, and I feel as though that's one thing I can say my mom did like instill in me, and it's a virtue, and it's also like a vices in the sense that like I'm not gonna stop the grind. It really does not stop, but it's also like I have to recognize I'm going to burn out. Yeah. At one point, like I need to find out when is my mental health more important, but also be able to stimulate like my grade, like not let that fall, but be able to be like, okay, well, this weekend it's self-care, like we're not gonna grind to do these many notes and stuff like that, because I like pride myself on like how well I do in school, because I do want to be like a top lawyer, like call me in 10 years.
But set the bar really high.
But like I don't like to compete I don't like to think of others and bring others down. Like I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna do that. Like, yeah, I'm smart. Like I'm not gonna tell somebody, I'm not gonna make myself seem dumb and small around people. Yeah. And I'm very proud of being smart, but at the same time, I'm not going to like make somebody else feel small if they do not understand where I'm coming from.
Gotcha. And I think that tells a lot about your character, because you want to continue to let your light shine, and you should, but not make somebody else feel small because they don't understand or because they don't get it. But being able to either provide a helping hand or be able to, break it down, because some people, some stuff that just don't click, and so they need that extra step of that extra process kind of broken down. I took another training course, and it talked about how we as normal learners need something repeated or shared to us like 7 to 8 times, but somebody that has a disability or like dyslexia or some kind of auditory processing disorder, they may need it repeated 20 to 50 times before they really grasp it. And in order for them to learn it and keep it, it may need to be like 70 to 80 or 90 times. And so that's a lot for somebody that is suffering from a disability or some kind of setback that has not either been diagnosed. Their parents won't recognize it. The school doesn't recognize it. And so it's like, then you have people like, I said this 5 times. Why you don't get it? Because I need it 50 times. So, you have to find some type of median of understanding what the disconnect is.
Because
why you didn't get it.
At least for me, like I went undiagnosed with ADHD until my 19th birthday. Like, oh wow. And my doctor was like, that's actually really prevalent in a lot of like females. Like it, like the medical system, like, it's like, okay, well, we'll like it's kind of prolonged for females. With males, like you can instantly kind of see it, like it's noticeable. But with women, it's like, okay, well.
And I'll tell you why. Because you find a way to adapt.
Yeah.
You find a way to compensate for the disconnect. Like you recognize it, that something wasn't clicking, and so you start either taking more additional notes, studying longer hours, and pushing yourself versus somebody else that may not have that drive, and they just let that disability just kind of overtake them and put them further and further behind.
Because it really was like a struggle in college. Like I could go through elementary, middle, high school, that was no problem. Like that. But when I got to college, I was like, oh wow, like I had to realize all over again, okay, like what helps me study, what are like how do I learn? And I just really had to figure out, like, for me, I have to visualize it. If I can't visualize it, it's not gonna work. And I have to be able to teach it to somebody else. That's how I know it. If I can't go ahead and be like, okay, well, this is what I learned from the beginning of class to the end of class, then maybe I didn't know it. I didn't learn it.
Gotcha. And that's very important, because that's what they are teaching us as teachers, to give it to you visually, give it to you so you can hear it auditory and like make some type of connection with it. And so what I do with our kids doing sight words If you can't get the word, I want you to write the word, draw a picture that goes with the word, then write a sentence with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you got 3 times that you're using this word and you're building that connection. And I mean, like, in one day, I had a student that like immediately learned like 5 words just by doing that. And so I'm like, all right, flip it over on the back. These words that you missed on this list, now we're about to do the same thing. And so it's important that they keep getting that repetition. And so being able to, like you say, find out what disconnect or that you was getting and fixing it and making that. You saying you had to have it visually. So what are some things that you found that you know, just adjustments that you had to make?
When it comes to schoolwork, I have to really lock in and, like you said, go over it multiple times. If I can't tell nobody what I learned, I won't know it. Mm-hmm. It just goes in one ear, out the other. My attention span goes off the charts.
Yeah, or something that you can relate to.
Mm-hmm. Because that's what I also figured out I struggled with. Like, if it wasn't a class that, like, I wanted to pursue, then I was going to get bored easily. Mm-hmm. And so I had to make it fun for me, or, like, just get a tutor. Because, baby, my classes now, I love them. I'm so in tune. I'm, like, proactive, and I stay after class, ask my teacher questions.
Oh, that's good. You in your core classes now, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's something that you enjoy. And in essence, you're saying that you want parents to be more actively engaged, have that open dialogue with you, but to make sure that they're actually listening and hearing what you're saying.
Communication goes both ways. You have to be able to listen, to understand, to be able to put your ego aside, to understand that your feelings might get hurt when having a conversation, but be mature enough to be like, okay, I don't agree, I can disagree, but I hear what you're saying.
Right.
So communication is key in any relationship for it to survive.
Definitely knowing your child, because I can say me, I don't cry because I'm sad. Like, when I get real mad, I tend to cry because it's like I have so many emotions and I don't know how to get it out. But also I can say us as the children to also be able to listen, because sometimes we get in our heads where we're like, I'm not listening to nothing she's saying. I'm just going to let her talk and get it over with. But also just taking it in and listening and just understanding their point of view, but also getting your point of view out without both going at each other.
Back and forth, yeah.
Both people who are like communicating should be able to feel expressed and heard no matter what. And words can hurt me more than sticks and stones. And when you're growing up, you hear, oh, sticks and stones, like, don't break, like, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words do not. And I feel that is the furthest from the truth. Because you're told to express yourself, to be who you are, and, like, don't let anybody steal away your thunder. And the way people do that is by talking down on you, and you don't want your parents to do that. The people who are supposed to uplift you and, you know, raise you to be the best you can be should not be telling their child, oh, you're yada 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 yada, to degrade them,
silencing you, or I would say minimizing your feelings and trying to make you feel like that shouldn't be the way you feel. And I think it is hard for us because we had this upbringing, and I always tell my daughter, we laugh about it, because my grandma has 56 grandkids, maybe more. But the ones that were in our age range, it was probably about 10 of us. So Saturday mornings when we were watching cartoons, we would get around when Woodpecker went off, we would sit around the kitchen table and start just joning on each other. So we built that thick skin and we were able to laugh at our pitfalls. So we would pick at each other. So that way when you got into the real world, it wasn't nothing that they could say that you ain't already heard. So you built that thick skin. But because we are so kind of spread out at family-wise that you're not used to being called out on your pitfalls. So I even now, I call out what my insecurity is, before somebody else has something to say.
Oh, I definitely do that.
And so I recognize that, and I'm just like, okay, so you ain't saying that. It ain't gonna hurt my feelings because I already know that. So what else? Now let's move towards, what's the real reason why you want to talk bad about me? Because you're insecure about yourself? No, and then, but I do get that y'all, the words are more hurting to y'all. And so it's the parents, us, like I say, we got to find that medium ground.
Because you stated that you did that within your cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Parents should not be participating in
that
behavior.
No, they did. No, they did. Because we were talking about our parents. Or their parents. So they didn't. And I get what you're saying. Like, you don't want the parents shouldn't be putting down. And I've seen some where, seen different things on TV. I haven't even seen the whole movie Precious. But just to understand that there are some kids that have gone through that to that extent. And that is belittling and that is degrading, and I could, it would take a strong person to have to go through that and still thrive in life. But there are some things that some of these kids are exposed to, and it's like, wow, you really had to go through that. And nobody should be exposed to that. But in essence, we still don't want to downplay what you're going through or how you feel about a situation. And make sure that we find a way to just kind of communicate, keep the doors open, so that way we can talk without yelling and screaming and fussing and fighting, slamming doors and this and that and the third. Because it's a process, especially with teen girls and their moms. Because guess what? Y'all just like us.
Yeah.
Just like
I
us.
truly believe.
I see your mama all the time and you. What you say?
Because I truly believe me and my mom are like
two peas in a pod.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes she's like, oh my gosh, so actually she underestimates how alike we are.
But it's two of y'all, cause India too. But
India's in Texas now.
You're right, she's away, but it's still it's
prevalent
how much the girls pick up from their moms. And you really don't want to, because you be like, dang, she made me sick. But a lot of those characteristics, her go-getter attitude.
They tell us in social studies, you even follow your mom's political party. You're boys, females, they tend to follow after their moms because I don't know the actual
the percentage or whatever. All right, so we're gonna flip the script just a little bit. They're gonna ask me some questions. How this about to go, y'all, but we're gonna see what they got. Thank you for tuning in to Miss Dre. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified every time I post, because you don't want to miss next week's discussion as these Gen Z ladies flip the script and ask me questions. You can also follow me at The Real Miss Dre on Instagram. Smooches.